This review is sponsored by the Autobots because things are getting prime. Things are primed for launch here today on Turbo Tortoise Tech. Steelseries has given me a prime example of a good mouse. Good afternoon and welcome to Turbo Tortoise Tech. My name is Reese of the 4-piece variety of WookiE XXXL, and dad jokes aside, this thing is actually kind of disgusting. I thought another mouse Steelseries, another one. How much could you possibly improve on Ergonomics? How much could you possibly improve on the Sensei 10? And the answer is quite a lot. By creating an entirely new chassis and then splitting it up into three separate products that all do three distinctly different things, they've created three really good mice with really good tiering in that. So primarily I have the Prime and the Prime Plus. I did get a Prime wireless, but unfortunately the dongle decided to kick the bucket on me. Like literally it was tested at Evetech by the lads and I got it here and it just doesn't respond to anything no matter what I do to it. So unfortunately I'll have to get another one before I can complete that portion of the review. But for these two, I've been using them for the last 2-3 days and the results are in, and they're nutty. They're very, very nutty mtetwa. So let's start off with where they're the same. Both of these are sub 75 grams. It's 71 for the Prime Plus and it's 69 grams for the standard Prime. The Prime Plus, that extra weight is coming in the form of a tiny little LED screen in the bottom of the mouse that gives you access to some onboard settings and profiling that you can do on the fly. The idea being with that it's made more for like going to events and using it at LAN, etc., and then not having to install software and being able to adjust at the point in time. So it's kind of like the Zowie everything on the mouse setup. Both of these have the exact same Truemove Pro sensor with a 450 IPS and a 50G acceleration. Basically, the Truemove Pro was developed between Steelseries and PixArt, and we're seeing this a lot now with manufacturers where they are working together with PixArt to improve the sensor and make it even better with their firmware. And they've done pretty much a perfect job on this because it's basically exactly the same as what was in my Sensei 10, and so it tracked pretty much 1-for-1. This is one of the most 1-for-1 CPI mouse around, and that works in correlation with the IPS and with the acceleration rating. So if you want to understand more about that, there is actually a really good piece on Steelseries site that goes into that to explain how artificially enhanced CPI can affect your mouse's performance. Both of these have the same cable setup though, in a molded removable USB micro cable, but this is a Pro Flex cable. So if you don't have a mouse bungee, you don't need to worry. Unlike the Sensei 10, which had a rubberized cable, just quite annoying without a bungee, to be very honest. Software is the normal Steelseries engine, which is pretty comprehensive. Macros, RGB lighting, polling rate, X and Y splits for different DPI layers. It's all there. Everything you need to be able to control this mouse and store everything on board is right there in the software. Now this is where the mice start to get a little bit different. Both of them have the same feet setup and the single button on the bottom over here, which is for switching between your different profiles, at least on the Prime. On the Prime Plus, if you hold it in, then you get access to those functions that are built into the mouse and you can change them, like I said, on the fly. And you can mod the screen and you can actually draw inside of the Steelseries engine app what you would like to be on the bottom of the mouse. So as you can see, I've drawn a very, very poor Wooks over there in my best chicken scratch. There is one critical difference here. If you're looking at the bottom of both of the mouse now on your screen, you'll notice that there is a secondary kind of sensor in the Prime Plus, and that's for lift-off distance modification. So if you need that, if you are on that kind of high professional level, the extra salt boys and 80K boys, I'm looking at you for your CSGO. That is really nice to have because you can modify that so that when you sweep and come back down, that you don't bump, which does tend to happen quite a lot with mice because that lift-off distance usually starts tracking from about 1 millimeter. So if you come down at an angle, it will often bump your cursor or your crosshair out of the way, and that's not going to be ideal, is it? There is no surface calibration tool for these mice though. That's because they've tuned it to work on pretty much every surface imaginable. The feet on the bottom of the mouse are also standard PTFE feet, but they have been made and set up to be replaced, as you can see with the little notches that they've cut into the areas around the edge of those feet. Then you can put your fingernail underneath that quite easily and get them up and out after the fact. Neither of them came with a spare set of feet though in the package, which would have been a nice add-on Steelseries. They've also used their own switches in this. It's a magnetic type of switch which has a very, very long lifetime. It's not an Omron, but I couldn't tell you the difference between the two in feel. As you can see, the bounce back is really good. You can spam this button super hard. It's not like some of the other opticals that I've used where the bounce back is not that quick. This is ultra quick on this magnetic switch, and beyond the sound effect, the difference in feel from a normal mechanical Omron is, I couldn't tell the difference. Now, something else you may have noticed is that the only RGB lighting zone is actually in the scroll, which is a very good scroll, I have to say. Feel-wise, you can feel every single bump of it, and I much prefer that to a free scroll. And the button itself that you click in here, it does give a good feedback. It's very tactile, and it's just nice. It feels good, and the rubber and everything on there is nicely done. Now that covers the physical traits of the mouse, but what is it like to use? Well, have a look at this. Nice go, nice go. What's this? Oh, all belong. Oof. There's no thing if you're okay. That was a headshot. As you can see, things were going down. Boys were not having a good time. I was having a great time. Everything on this mouse is like really nicely set up. Look, I am an ergo sleuth because I was an MX518 boy, and that was like 8 years of my life. So ergo mouse, very highly ranked for me. This, you know, I was kind of, when I saw it, I was like, but that hump's like really far forward in the mouse. Isn't that gonna feel super weird? It didn't. It actually fits the hand profile exceptionally well. I have particularly broad palms as well, and it felt quite comfortable. I did have Casimir have a feel with the mouse so that he could give me his thoughts on it as well, because he's also a Sensei 10 user. So I said to him, look, Sensei, everything is going to be the same, tracking, performance, etc. is going to be quite similar, but what does your feel like? And he felt like it was a little bit narrow compared to the Sensei 10, whereas going from other mice to the Sensei 10, it did feel a bit broader, and it is a bit of a broader ambidextrous setup. But for an ergo setup, like this is sick. The way that the buttons and stuff cup your fingers at the front here as well, it's like they've got channeled grooves for it. The thumb button positioning as well is some of the best I've ever had. And when playing Dota, I was enjoying myself. Because I've set up in Dota for my first 2 item slots to be on the mouse buttons themselves, and obviously that's really nice for using things like blink dagger or point and click abilities like Orchid, for instance, to silence targets. That came in handy, being where they are, because then I don't have to weirdly contort my hand shape in order to reach those. I will say though, spamming right click on this was a little bit harder than on the Sensei, just because that Sensei is so broad. When you are, you know, spamming your fire button or your left click compared to your right click, your hand will take on a little bit of a different shape to be able to do that, right? As you can see in front of you right here, right now. And doing that with this, it was a little bit more cumbersome for Dota, but FPS, it was actually way better. So there is a little bit of a trade-off in shape there. I still think though, that this is pretty much the best shape and the best mouse that Steelseries has ever made. I really didn't want to buy a new one after just getting my Sensei 10, but apparently when these go on sale, I'm probably going to be in line for a Prime Plus, because I want to draw my name really badly on my mouse, and because it's got lift off distance modification, and I also sweep a lot. I use a QCK Heavy, specifically the limited edition one from CS. I forget now, there we go, Hyper Beast. It's the Hyper Beast limited edition one, and it's quite a big mouse pad, and I still hit my screen on either side of it. So lift off distance for me of utmost importance, to be very honest with you. And if you are looking at becoming professional in an FPS environment, that is something that I would encourage you to look at. The standard Prime, if you don't have that issue and you're not sweeping and lifting quite as much, then you're not going to have or run into that issue. And honestly, the lift off distance mod, it prevented, say, 1 out of 10 lifts from having a bump. Like, that's what I would experience with the normal Prime, at least this one. 1 out of 10, I might bump. This, obviously 0 out of 10. So it's maybe a 10% differential, but sometimes that's, you know, the price of winning. Anyway, that's all I have for you in this review. If you have enjoyed it, please hit us up with a like and subscribe, and I will see you on the flip side.
Tell me you're no good. I'm brushing away.